everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at our old friend Freu dich sehr, O meine Seele, which translates to Rejoice greatly, O my soul. We've looked at this particular melody 4 times in the past, or maybe I should say 3 times in the past, because I, on accident, made the same video twice about a month apart. So that's a little embarrassing, the fact that I had a little different analyses between the two as well. I chalk it up to being a byproduct of the fact that I've grown as an analyst in that time. But yeah, I recorded the exact same harmonization twice. And the fact that my edition that I was using at that time printed 2 of the exact same harmonizations is the reason why I've pivoted over to a different collection in the first place. I spent a great deal of time cross-referencing all of the chorales and making sure the rest of the numbers were correct, which they were, so that was good. And I'm sure that if I followed the anthology I was using beforehand, it would have been okay, but I would have had to been more particular about sourcing and cross-referencing rather than just having an edition that I could have just trusted outright. So we're looking at this harmonization of the melody today. This melody's in 3/4, and it's relatively harmonically simple, so this should be a quick analysis for today. So let's get started. We start on C major, we end on C major, no key signature. I reckon we're in the key of C major. Moving on to beat 3, we have G, B, G, and D. That is our dominant triad in root position, G major. We then have C, C, G, and E. That is our tonic triad in root position. However, if we look to our first cadence, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of G major. And this is definitely an authentic cadence. We see F sharps, 4 measures out from or 3 measures out from the final chord in the phrase. So I think we're very much in the realm of G major here, rather than trying to fit this into our narrative of extended half cadences that we've been talking about up until this point. But yeah, I definitely think this is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of G. We have a passing tone. Before we go too far ahead, we should mark our modulation to G major. The C major chord is now our 4. We then have a D major triad in root position. It's a 5 chord. We then have E, E, G, and C. A little bit of a deceptive progression going on here. C major over E in the key of G major is 4/6. We would expect 5 to go to 1, but it doesn't, hence deceptive progression. We then have F sharp, D, A, and C. That's a D7 chord over F sharp, or 5/6/5. And then we have G, D, G, and B natural. That's our tonic triad, G major, in root position. We then have another C major triad, C, C, E, and A. Apologies, this is not C major, this is A minor in first inversion, which is 2/6, an appropriate chord in a pre-cadential context. We then have a D major chord, D, A, F sharp, and A, which is our 5, and of course we cadence on our 1 G major. Looking ahead to the end of the next phrase, we have a perfect authentic cadence in our tonic key, C major. So we'll go ahead and call this G chord, because we're perfect authentic cadencing in the key of the dominant. I reckon this is our pivot chord, and this G major triad is actually our 5 now in the key of C major. That 5 chord goes to a 1 chord, E, G, C, and C. So a C major triad in first inversion. G, B, G, and D. Our dominant G major in root position, C, C, G, and E, our tonic triad again in root position, passing tone in the bass, more specifically a passing 7th. We have A, C, A, and F. That's an F major triad in first inversion, which is 4/6. E, C, G, C, E, and E. Switching between clefs has never been my strong suit. This is a C major triad in second inversion, so that's 1/6/4. F natural, C, A, and D. That is a D minor 7 over F, which is another 2/6 chord, but more specifically it's 2/6/5. Bach loves his 2/6/5 chords. We then have G, B, G, and D. That is a G major triad in root position, which is a 5 chord. And then, of course, we cadence on our tonic C major. So the fact that we have 1, 6, 4 separated by a 2, 6, 5 chord is interesting. I'm hesitant to put the bracket underneath it because there's a chord in between the two. Usually we see a progression of 1, 6, 4 going to 5, but this F in the bass interrupts that flow. And this 1, 6, 4 is actually more of a passing 6, 4 than it is a cadential 6, 4. It's kind of both, but more so a passing than a cadential. Alright, moving along to our next cadence, we have an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of C. We start off the phrase with another C major triad. We then have A, C, A, and F, which is another F major triad in first inversion, which is 4, 6. And then we have an interesting chord here, very strong and pungent part of the chorale. E, G, B flat, and G. Now, this is a 7 chord, but it's not a 7 chord in the key of C major. It's a 7 chord in the key of F major. So this would be 7 of 4. So a little bit of a tonicization going on here. So 4 are going to 7, but 7 of another key. So this is really just 1, 7, 1 in the key of F major. But because we haven't modulated, it's 4, 7 of 4, 4. Because this is just another F major triad in root position. Then we have G, C, E, and E. That's another C major triad in second inversion, so 1, 6, 4, followed by F, C, A, and D, which is another D minor 7 chord in first inversion, which is our 2, 6, 5. Then we have G, B, G, and D, which is another root position 5 chord G major. And then we have our tonic triad. So we have similar phrases here where we have pretty much the identical, they are identical penultimate and ultimate measures of the phrase, but they're preceded by different material. Alright, switching things up a bit, we get a half cadence in the key of C major here. This definitely sounds more so like a half cadence than anything else because we have F naturals throughout, even though we are cadencing on G major. So we get another C chord here, so no need to reanalyze. However, we get B flat here. So this changes the quality of the chord and the function of the chord. So it's no longer functioning as a tonic, it's functioning as a dominant. And just like how we got a tonicization of the 4 chord here, we're getting it again, this time with a 5-7 chord. And this chord gets held for a long time, or relatively long time, with a series of passing tones following it. And the only non-chord tone in these 4 4-note passing tone figure is the A. The G, the B flat, and the C are all relevant chord tones. And as we would expect, we get a 4 chord afterwards, F, C, A, and A. Really high in the soprano here. Root position. We then have, I was tempted to call those passing tones actually because of the harmonic rhythm, but I didn't do that earlier, so I might as well just call this a chord and with a hastened harmonic rhythm. So we have F, D, B natural, and A. That's B minor 7 flat 5 over F, which is 7 half diminished 4, 3. And of course we would expect this to go to a tonic triad afterwards, maybe in F going down to E, so first inversion, E, E, C, and G, which it does, which is nice. Okay, great. We then have A, C, C, and F. That's another F major triad in second and first inversion, apologies. Passing tone in the bass. Notice how when Bach connects a tonic triad, right, because we have C, C, G, and E here. Notice how when Bach connects a 4 or 6 chord to a tonic, or a 4 chord to a 1 chord, where there is where there's an A going to a C, he almost always uses a B as a passing tone. A lot of times we get a passing 7 chord here where B is the root of the chord. However, bare minimum, he won't give us an entire triad, but we'll get the leading tone as a passing tone, and he's very consistent with this. We then get C, C, G, and E. No need to reanalyze. And then, of course, we cadence on our dominant G major, 5 chord. We then have C, C, G, and E, which is our tonic triad. Before I analyze further, let's look at the next phrase. We have one of these interesting, enigmatic Bach cadences on the subdominant. I'm going to call it an imperfect authentic cadence with a question mark because you can analyze this in the key of F, but F really gets sprung on you at the last second. But in comparison to the similar cadences that we've seen that have exhibited this structure in the past, this one is definitely one of the most conclusive in terms of hinting at the idea of moving to another key, because we do get that flat 7 going on, which is just 4 in the key of F major. So we'll see when we get there. We have another C major triad here, but this time it's in first inversion because the bass changes. We then get F, C, A, and F, which is our F major triad in root position. That's 4. We then have G, B, G, and E, so we get a little bit of a deceptive progression here. We would expect 4 to go to 5 or 4 to go to 7, as 4 is usually a predominant chord or some type of passing chord between between tonics. However, here we get E minor in first inversion, so 3-6. Interesting use of the chord here. This 3-6 chord is functioning as a bridge between 2 4 chords, because here we just get another F major triad in first inversion this time. So A, C, F, and C. 4-6. Then we get G, B, D, and D. That is our G major triad in root position, which is our 5 chord. G, B, G, and D. Again, no need to reanalyze because it's the same chord, just with some vocal exchange. And apologies, this should be there is some analysis to do here. This is a 5-6 chord because we have the third of the G major chord in the bass. And this chord turns into root position on B3. So that's our analysis. Almost missed that one. And of course, 5 goes to 1. And the phrase could have ended here, but we're thrown for a loop and we get F major in the next bar, but we get to F major via its dominant. So here is really where it sounds like it modulates. It's almost like the phrase sounds like it interrupts itself with like a false cadence almost. So this would be analyzed as 5-7 of 4, and I am going to mark it with the secondary dominant here, at least where the phrase modulates, because of the fact that it sounds like it modulates right here. Before this, we have no reason to think it's going to the key of F, especially when we get E minor in between the 2 F major chords. That's pretty quintessentially C major. So if we go to the key of F, this is just 5-7 now, and then we cadence on 1. But unusually, we're going to immediately go back to the key of C major afterwards. So this modulation is very, very brief. Really what this sounds like is Bach is modulating on the subdominant, but going from the tonic to the subdominant is unusual. It's not something that you see a lot. You do see it with some regularity in Bach's music, but I'm unaware of the term. It's like an inverted or an inverse plagal cadence. We get it the other way around. But really what's happening here is an authentic cadence of the subdominant, because it's usually preceded by its dominant, right? Because the tonic in the key of C major is also the dominant of the subdominant. It just takes the flat 7 to establish that as truth. Otherwise, it just sounds like a logical progression via the cycle of fifths. But moving ahead to our last phrase, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of C. We get a C major triad here, C, C, G, and E. We then have C, E, G, and C, just a rotation of 3 of the voices, so no need to reanalyze. We then have C, D, G, and F, just a bunch of fourths, so we can just mark that as an accented non-chord tone, and this is in fact a G major triad in first inversion, which is 5-6 in the key of C major. And then we have another C major chord on the next beat. We have C, C, G, and E, which is our tonic triad. We then have F, A, F, and D, getting ready for our cadence. This is a D minor 7 chord in, this is just a D minor chord, not D minor 7. We have only, we have no 7th in this chord, we only have the triad. So this is 2-6. Then we have G, G, D, and G. G, sorry, let me see that again. G, G, D, and G. That's just an open fifth. We know that the 5 is being implied here, but there's no third. I think there's a way to notate that using Roman numerals, but I'm not 100% certain. You probably could just do that with I don't know, maybe like 8/5. Would that be the figured base for it? Because of the fact that we have an octave above it, but we don't have a third? Who knows? I don't know, but I'll leave that there. Maybe just, actually no, I'm just going to write it in parentheses underneath it. That articulates it clearly enough for me. But that 5 does go to a 1. And then we cadence, and then we get ready for 5 again. G, 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 and D. So again, another implied 5 chord with no third, until we get the, he actually goes out of the way to avoid the third. The only non-chord tone we get, and we'll say actually 7 happens before that. 7 happens on beat 2. So we have no third twice, and then we cadence on a complete C major triad. So it's interesting that we have 2 5 chords here that don't have a third. It's just a big open fifth. That's really fascinating. It's the third in the 5 chord that makes it really want to resolve. Like, yes, the bass is a fifth away from the tonic, and that also contributes to it, but the leading tone is what doubles down on the 5 chord being the real cadential powerhouse, or the real emphasizing chord in a key. But yeah, all in all, this was a very straightforward chorale to analyze. I do enjoy analyzing chorales in 3/4 because there are less chords, and generally the harmonic rhythm is a little bit more deliberate. When you have 4 notes in the beat, sometimes the beat gets subdivided further into eighth notes, which makes it like you're analyzing sometimes more than 4 chords in the bar, whereas in 3/4 you're often only analyzing 2 chords in the bar, and it makes for a quick analysis. Not that quick analyses are better, it's just after a long day it's nice to get a little bit of analysis rather than burning myself out. But that being said, I'll leave you on that one. I'll leave you with these 5 chords that don't have a third, and a quaint chorale that has functional harmony that makes the analyst in me very happy. Thank you so much for watching the video, and thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis as well, and I hope you take care.